Live tonight for the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway, LSR TV is happy to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to our coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. Tonight, from the last great Coliseum, we go racing for round number 7, the Bristol 200, and we are happy that you're with us out of your home for sim racing and the iRacing Esports Network. Going to be radio only for just a moment as we work on bringing our picture to you. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince upstairs with you, with our producer Brett Wheeler picking away. We'll be live with you on the cameras momentarily, but for now, we will go radio only as we get set to come to the green flag in this race. Thomas J. George in the number 9 Chevrolet has qualified on a pole. Jason Jacoby's number 3 car is on his right-hand side, and as we speak, they are side by side coming out of turn number 2. Heading for the start of this race, 29 drivers total looking to be starting this one this evening, of about the 45 or 46 that are eligible. So the intimidation factor of Bristol keeping a few away. We will see how this one plays out as we have 200 laps and 106 miles of action coming up for you from this Bristol Motor Speedway, with the number 9 machine getting ready to kick us all off. And it's about to get set going right now. George Jacoby front row with David Washington, Kyle Kamer row 2, Andrew Freitas through your top 5. A couple of changes as well. We'll bring all of that to you as tonight gets underway. But the pace car heads down and in. Let's see what the number 9 machine can do as we go racing from Bristol. Round number 7, Justin, we're underway.
Yeah, and a pretty clean start for the top 10 so far. A very challenging racetrack. A lot of drivers you will see today will use that outside line for a majority of the runs, but if you're one of the drivers that can use the bottom, it's better to save tires and could be the best place to try and make passes on the long run, Evan.
And you can see, obviously, no rubber down there at the bottom at the moment, so really struggling out of the gate. Your third-place starter, the 9-8 David Washington, he's going to tuck in line behind James Pasquarello, one of the new drivers, making it his first start of 2019 tonight with a great Q effort after he qualified 6th. He moves up to 4th. So almost every single driver who started on the outside made some gains off the start, including Jason Jacoby, who was right there neck and neck with Thomas J. George to the green flag. He's passed somebody outside and gone to the race lead.
Yeah, he was the fastest driver in practice, although it was on a cold track. He's also shown some great pace throughout the entire week across the iRacing service, and could be one of the most challenging drivers. But keep an eye on that 88 machine. He's the only driver right now in the top 10 outside of McClendon who is trying that bottom line to gain some time and try and think of the big picture in case we have a huge long run to start the race today.
And of course, if you've been with us over the course of maybe not only just this 2019 season, but the last 2 or 3, Andrew Freitas has been a formidable foe for many of these guys. He's won 4 of the last 5 races this season. Atlanta, Vegas, Phoenix. Jacoby snatched it away from him at Auto Club a few weeks back, and of course your race winner just a week ago at Texas was him as well. Not the only driver low now as David Washington's 98 dives to the inside, try to make a move on a Pasquarello. He's not willing to commit, though, all the way to the bottom of the racetrack, I think, like that 88 machine is. He does it down here in 3 and 4. In 1 and 2, he kind of rides center high. He is trying to make something happen, though, with the 77 playing defense up top, tucked in line behind your third-placed runner. That's the 8 of Kyle Kamer.
Yep, for Pasquarello making one of his first starts of the 2019 season, part of the Steel Horse Racing camp. He shows some great practice speed, especially running along that outside wall. However, he's already scraped that car alongside the door. That isn't going to play as much of a factor at a track like Bristol on the iRacing service. However, it could mean those kind of mistakes, let's say you scrape the wall, can open up the door for, say, the driver diving to his inside. Freitas cutting by the 98. He's side by side with the 77 of Pasquarello.
It was the best challenge we'd seen thus far. Look at there, center of the quarter. He actually got about a half a car length in front of that 77, but JP was able to get back into the gas off, and that is really what makes the inside a difficult place to complete, the passes. Well, the inside's wide open, and listen, Kamer, Pasquarello, Washington, none of those drivers at all, Justin, are concerned about blocking the inside. It's there. You want it to be my guest, because it's so difficult to complete the pass that when you get a little bit later on, I think these tires start to balance out, and most importantly, as rubber gets put down, is Pasquarello into the back of Kamer that time at turn 3. We'll check him up, and more contact as Pasquarello is going to get turned off for the nose of the 88. The 23 is involved, and the whole field screeches to a halt.
Yeah, that was, again, that mistake I mentioned. If you make one little mistake, it can just potentially snowball at this track. In that case, it started off with that bump through 1 and 2. Not expecting to think that checkup opened up the door for Freenosh on the exit of 3 and 4. And by the time he got straightened up, Freenosh had the run, and the 77 of Pasquarello just lost the back end just a tiny touch to the point where he hit that right front fender, turned him around, and collects the 23 who had nowhere to go. A couple other bystanders, the 54 of Andrew T. Jones, as well as I think Skylar Shackelford, also getting some tiny bits of damage in that.
So a lot of drivers end up getting damage in that weren't really the initial cause of the 77 and some of the other drivers, but when Pasquarello bounced back up on track, the 29 of William Kruska barely got through, and Jeremy A. Miller's 23 was obliterated, so a ton of damage on that entry, who had a top 10 start. Certainly not what Miller would have been looking for, and we will check things up for the first time this evening, a long way from home at Bristol. Only pacing now at lap number 16 of 200, but that just goes to show you that even those drivers weren't necessarily stacked up on top of each other, but once you get a little bit of a checkup, a little bit of a piece of contact like we had seen there, it snowballs so quickly here to our first wreck of the afternoon, and have a couple of cars diving down to the pit lane. The 5 of Rhett McBride, you give it up the number 2 spot as the cars on the front and the back stretch pit lanes will come in individually. Makes it fun to track, and certainly adds a little bit of an extra element of strategy into the game here at this track specifically.
It absolutely can. Lots of drivers, of course, having to start from a few drivers rather starting from the back pit lane. That's going to mix things up first off. For some drivers, it's a disadvantage. You can actually lose spots because of where you're pitting compared to some of the drivers that pit on the front. But in terms of the strategy as well, if you get a lot of short runs, let's say, you can potentially take 2 tires or no tires. However, at this distance, you can be a sitting duck at this kind of a racetrack. If you take 2, you might be good for at least the first 20 laps of a run, but be very loose past that point, especially since this is the hottest the track has been all session tonight, including practice and qualifying. 117 degrees Fahrenheit track tip, Evan.
We know the drivers care about it because a lot of them waited to the final 2 minutes of the qualifying session to actually put their times in once those track temperatures dipped. So we'll see how well these machines are going to handle as we reshuffle the running order just a little bit. 27 cars still on the lead lap for this one. I don't think anybody ends up going to behind the wall after our first wreck of the evening. So pace car is going to dive back down and in. Thomas J. George would prefer to start on the outside line, but doesn't have the choice of inside or out, so the control car is going to be pinched on the bottom. He needs a good jump, and he's got it. First time at a start-finish line. He leads over Jason Jacoby. Desperately wants to get up top, and he does, but there's the crossover to the bottom. What a move by Jacoby.
Yeah, good run on the exit of turn 2 to retake the race lead, but that, in part, is not going to last for long. Cars in the wall. It's Kruska.
A lot of trouble down in the corner, but all the cars going to stay in one piece, and now they spin the 29. Caution flag is out, and it is a big mess. It started with Kruska, who was stuck 3 wide, a little bit of contact with the 24, and it looked like they were going to be okay, but then still more 3 wide with the 2 car, and the replay will kind of give you a better idea. Absolute chaos there, and there were just too many cars out of order. They can never fully get it back totally under control.
Yeah, once they started going sideways through turn 2 in that 3-wide situation, there was nowhere for anyone to go. There were so many drivers locking up the brakes that it's essentially, you gotta hope that you get luck. you better hope you have a rabbit's foot, essentially. There were at least 5, 6, 7 cars stopped to the backstretch after that. And some drivers that got severe damage as everyone just slammed down on their brake pedals. Man, an interesting race. But that's where those new rules come into play, Evan. And this is the perfect time to, bring that up.
Yeah, we have new rules and modified rules. We've been talking all season about the penalty point system, where if you cause a caution and if you claim responsibility for that caution, you do get 1 penalty point. And, well, those add up. So coming into tonight, we actually have a hearty number of drivers who are in the little bit of a danger zone. 11 drivers with active penalty points into this. If you accumulate 7 penalty points, you will be suspended for one race. The most of active drivers is Daniel Eberhardt, who currently sits with 5. Those are erased at a rate of 1 per competition. Eberhardt not competing this evening, but because he is not competing, he is not going to be able to lose any of those penalty points. But it is 1 point if you claim it, 2 points if you don't, except, as you just alluded to, Justin, if an incident happens within 5 laps of a restart, that this race will be double the penalty points, and we'll see how that plays out. And if it also maybe encourages drivers to be a little bit more precarious on the restarts. I know at Bristol, though, that's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, I think it absolutely encourages them, and I don't blame them. There's been a lot of, how do I phrase this? There's been a lot of yellow flags in the past few races, and some of them have been race-defined or race-changing situations towards the end of runs, or at the end of races, rather. You want to have as clean of a race as possible. You don't want to end up being fearful of a destroyed race car. I think that's, of course, going to help mitigate that potential possibility where you say, if you take that significant risk and end up taking too much of a risk too early in a run, especially, say, in a 200-lap race, it's going to hurt your chances overall throughout the rest of the season. You got to start thinking big picture, or else you're going to get punished.
And also, you talk about some late race situations. That is another one of the changes that has been made, as we know, and we tend to talk about the point of no return. If a caution flag is, comes out that causes the end of the race to not restart. Of course, if you traditional rules, you claim the caution, it's 1 point. You don't, it's 2. If you cause a race-ending incident and do not claim it, you will finish last on the lap that you were scored on. So if you are in a decision where, hey, I don't want to give up P5 because I think I wrecked somebody, you keep your mouth shut. That maybe would have flown in the last few weeks, but of course an adjustment made by all of our RSR admins, and now if you do not claim a caution and you are deemed in a post-race review to have caused it, you will lose your finishing position if that yellow flag ends the race. So learning process as we get into round number 7 of this 2019 campaign, and we get set for our 3rd start of the night as the pace car dives down and away. Jason Jacoby's got the bottom, and he's going to be able to do what Thomas J. George couldn't, and that's defend off of the race lead.
Absolutely blistering start off the green flag already. And look at Kyle Kamer able to get to the high line. But watch Freenarch as well on the bottom side. He's been the fastest driver out of anyone on the bottom side and nearly lost it coming to the stripe.
I mean, Freenarch is getting down onto the flat of the racetrack. Sparks are coming off of the left-hand side as he gets down onto the flat. Not going to be able to get Kamer tucked up in line. Dove back down to the inside of the racetrack. The 8 machine defends second. Freenarch sits in 3rd. This battle certainly looks like it is going to continue. The Thomas J. George is in the number 4 spot, and that's kind of where the catalyst is here. Dave Washington pinched on the bottom, needs to find a spotted line, or he's going to go way to the back because there's a big line of cars up top right now.
Yeah, he's going to need to find a hole as quick as he can because after 5 laps, if you can't run the bottom efficiently, it's like a freight train. You'll lose spot after spot after spot if you can't find your first opportunity to dive up onto the top side. That's going to potentially hurt him, and you're already starting to see that starting to drift a little back. Just cannot clear, though, Anthony Fredericks until the corner exit nearly cuts him off.
That was real tight there with the 98 pinched up in between the 9 and the 4, and I think David Washington wants to take a little bit of a lower quarter exit there, but he can't do it. He's boxed in. He's got to follow that. No, a shot to the back end. He's telling Thomas J. George, let's go. George trying to hold off Connor Horn on the bottom of the racetrack. That number 24 machine at a race-high P5 after starting in 15th place. Yeah,
and that's something that can happen if you're able to keep yourself clean in the early going. You can gain a lot of spots in fairly quickly, especially through pit strategy and through the various situations. He's though on the bottom side. It worked for him for about 5 laps. It's starting to swing the other direction though for him as the track gets a little bit hotter and his tires get a little bit more tougher. The reason people don't like that bottom, Evan, even if you don't have enough space to get up like he just did in front of Fredericks, you just cannot get off the corner with the right pace you want to without hitting the door or wrecking the car on top.
And you can see that on the 8, I mean, really trying to figure this thing out. Dave Washington wants to get up and around George, but he is not willing to give up that top line. He's actually trying to squeeze his nose on the outside of the 9 there. As the 9 goes a little bit lower, there's a very small window, and Washington has tried now 3-4 times to get up there, so far unable to. I certainly think he's got a little bit of a faster race car right now compared to George as they fight for P4 and P5. Connor Horn's going to go back to the inside. Don't see much coming from this. But David Washington looking for a move and very much only interested if it's on the outside.
Yeah, with the passes on the outside line, it is doable on the outside. The thing is, you're going to have to be near precise to time it up. You got to hope that the driver in front of you goes a little bit lower through 3 and 4, and you're able to get to the right rear quarter panel and basically squeeze them down the racetrack to get the pass done on the outside line. It's either that or you bump them out of the way like we've seen already a couple times. I think right now he's being patient. The question is he going to be patient in 50 laps?
Yeah, and also patience. You talk about if you get a long green flag run in this thing, if you're somebody like a Connor Horn and you're on the bottom of the racetrack, you'd be able to stay down there that much time for that amount of time and not totally tear up your equipment, but it certainly looks like these drivers are getting impatient. Another shot that time. Washington to the back of the 9 at Thomas J. George. That back end's not going to be there for much longer as the battle for the race lead now starting to shape up. Andrew Ferdinars closes in on Jason Jacoby. Both these cars have checked out. They're 2.5 seconds ahead of 3rd place, but the fight is on between the two. Jacoby running high and Ferdinars committed to the bottom line.
Jacoby's actually running the exact same pace, if not a little bit faster than that battle we've been seeing. The thing is, though, Ferdinars on the bottom side has been able to run at least a 10th lap faster a lap ever since he got by Kamer for the 2nd spot. It's, I think, a matter of when, not if. If he can make the pass, it's just a matter of when does he time it up. He's already damaged that front bumper with some of the battles on the racetrack.
And all by himself, and in between these two battles, we've been following the battle for the race lead, but Jacoby and Ferdinars also following the battle with Thomas J. George and Dave Washington. So 1, 2 are fighting, 4, 5 are fighting. In the middle of all of that, sandwiched is Kyle Kamer all on his own. The 8 machine enjoying clean racetrack. That's not normally something you get at Bristol Motor Speedway. Lap 45 in the works. So once you get a good green flag lap away, they really start to knock off here. Still running high 15-second lap times as now Ferdinars nose to nose with Jacoby, the closest he's been. I still think, though, despite that Ferdinars may have a little bit of a better car now, because he's not going to get that outside line, it's going to be very difficult for him to get around Jacoby, unless, of course, that 3 car makes a mistake. And a caution flag, just as we say that, comes out around on the front straightaway is Andrew T. Jones, the number 64 car for our 3rd of the night.
And it's been a season of horrors for Jones after a Final 4 finish in last year's championship. He's been involved in a lot of incidents this time. Just coming off the corner, had Brandon Johnson underneath. Brandon Johnson pushes up, ends up hitting the left rear quarter panel, and Jones ends up smacking the inside wall. That could potentially be engine damage, if not potential overheating issues the rest of the way, and he'll lose a lot of track position because of that incident.
The contact comes with he and the 21 machine. So far, it doesn't appear that Brandon Johnson is going to claim responsibility for the caution. We will see if that remains to be the case. It was close as they were both coming off of the corner, but certainly looked like the 21 machine tagged him and they went around. So, of course, if it is not claimed and it is deemed to be his fault later, it would be 2 points instead of 1. But that is another caution flag. Your race leaders are on pit road, and we are 3 wide off of the pit lane with Jacoby just barely edging out Washington and Ferdinars. All of that happens just so quickly under caution flag, but he got the first half of the field all diving down to the pit lane together, whereas somebody like an Anthony Fredericks pitting from P4, but he qualified 25th, Justin, so he's in a completely different pit road here on a back straightaway at Bristol, so he's in a completely different fight. It separates him, and that would goes to maybe add a little bit of extra credence to how important qualifying is in this kind of a race.
Exactly. Track position, track position, track position, so key when it comes to the Cup cars especially. If you're in the back, you're in the middle of the swarm, quote-unquote, I think as Case and Kierland would say it in one point. You don't want to be in the traffic at Bristol. And if you're on that back straightaway for a pit stall, it doesn't matter if you're gaining a lot of time. Fredericks was up in the top 10. He lost spots because he had to pit in the back. He came out in 12th after being in the top 6 a majority of that last run. You want to be on that front pit lane if you want any chance to gain any track position on any pit cycle.
And now we get to see another interesting situation. It looks like wave buys are going to be due up for Skylar Shackelford, who is having a rough night. A lot of damage on the number 12 machine. He and Jared Astrop are going to get waved by. They're scored in 26th and 27th, respectively. Your race leader is going to be Jason Jacoby. Interesting that it was, Jacoby who was running on the outside line in that battle, and it was Fridars who was running on the bottom. And now that they come for a restart, they're going to be flip-flopped. Control car to the inside, and Jacoby, Fridars on the top. Of course, the bottom not the place you want to be. But the big advantage here is, of course, the 3 gets to dictate when we start this race. So if you can catch the 88 sleeping, he should be able to get up into turn 1.
Yeah, he did a perfect job, I think, on the and the last restart, rather, where he went as soon as it's about really listening to the drivers around you to see, are they out of the gas? Are they just touching the gas? Or something along those lines to say, okay, I can go. With Jacoby, he went right on pace car last time. I wouldn't be surprised if he does the same here. But you got to remember, Fridars has driven a lot around him this season. They've competed a lot for the race lead. He might have a bit of those tendencies down. Let's see.
We will find out as the pace car gets ready to dive down it in. And what the 3 machine decides to do, it is Jacoby's field to bring to the green flag. And it is another picture-perfect start for him. Green flag back in the air at lap 52. Jacoby clear up front, and Fridars immediately diving back down to the inside of the racetrack. First battle is going to be for 3rd. The 98 machine of David Washington. The 8 of Kyle Kamer going at it.
And Kamer's got the preferred outside line, able to clear him, but look what's going on just in front of them. Fridars almost got clear of Jacoby, but it looks like that inside line, that can be a bit of a worser line at the start of a run, especially if you prefer that bottom. It loses you so much time at the corner exit, and Fridars is actually losing ground in the early portion of this run as Kamer holds off the side-by-side battle between George and Washington.
They continue to fight the 98 machine going the wrong direction on the inside line. Thomas J. George is working the outside line of the racetrack, doing a very good job. Your pole sitter hanging inside of the top 5, and he will clear atop the 98. So George stays P4. Washington ends up in 5th, and behind them, what a drive deep into the corner. Connor Horn tried so hard to get up in front of Stanford, not able to do it.
And he used a little bit of strategy in the pits. He only had a 10-second pit stop. That means he took 2 tires on that stop. It's going to be a little bit of a looser car, but in turn, gives him better track position to be in front of the drivers. The question is, can he hold on? And can he utilize that little bit more looseness that you might feel compared to taking 4 to try and get drivers like Stanford, like Washington, who's also on 2, throughout the rest of this run?
And how will those moves play on later into the race? You take 2 down, you're almost going to be forced to take 4 later. If that ends up being a late race caution flag, then you might be stuck in a wrong strategy. Battle for the race lead again. Fridars continues to try lap after lap. So far unsuccessful on the 3 of Jason Jacoby. Of course, these 2 drivers got well acquainted with each other just a week ago from Texas. And Fridars ended up through all of the drama and the excitement on top at the end of this one. So we know that Jacoby does not want to lose to the 88 again, but Fridars, at least at this point, not looking like he wants to get physical, and that's going to hurt Jacoby. Their lap traffic checked him up a little bit. Jeremy E. Miller tried to stay high. That's where the 3 car wanted to go, though, and he's lucky that he didn't throw over the race lead for that one.
Yeah, the last time they reached him on the last run, That's where Freenar's gained about 6/10 on the racetrack. It was near disaster again there. This time, though, Jacoby a bit more prepared on the outside line. Actually forced Freenar's off his preferred line because of where he reached him and lost him some time. But I want to mention how different Freenar's is running the bottom compared to really anybody else I've seen on the service. It comes down to confidence and how you can manage that bottom line. If you're able to hit the brakes hard enough while rounding that tight edge of the corner without pushing up, you can carry so much speed on the bottom of the racetrack. But of course, you lose some of that back on the outside. But again, your tires won't burn as hard on the outside, especially the right front, if you're able to make that line stick in the big picture.
And it's kind of incredible just watching the intervals here as they continue to battle for the race lead. It's not hurting them at all. They continue to pull 2.5 seconds now ahead of the rest of the group. Kyle Kamer had kind of, as I mentioned, had a comfy cushion there sitting in the number 3 position. No longer, though, is he only on his own. He's got Thomas J. George, Dave Washington, Eric Stanford, and the 24, Connor Horn, all tucked up behind him. So he's very much in the thick of things here, and probably one of the more tightly contested battles on track as everybody else through the top 20, single file with a little bit of space between them.
Yeah, and I think this is to be expected. It's big picture racing if you're running single file. You know, it's hard to pass on the inside, and that if you leave that outside line open, you're going to have the first driver behind you pounce. If you have space, you can utilize it. If you don't, you see exactly what you're doing now and hope you're not involved in a caution if someone gets impatient and tries to bump and run you out of the way. Remember the gentleman's rule. One nudge says, I'm here. Second nudge says, okay, I'm getting impatient. Third nudge, I'm going to move you myself.
And we wonder, lap number 69 now, if it is going to be in the point in the race where it's time to break out the rule book like that, or if we're going to wait a little bit longer. Contact earlier between the 9 and a 98 would suggest that any lap at Bristol is appropriate to refer to the driver's code, but at least it certainly appears to me like they're playing it a little bit cooler on this one.
Go up to the race lead because it looks like Jacoby just lost the lead because Caleb Weekly got tight and hit the wall in front of him. New leader, the 88, Andrew Freenar.
The 3 would have been 5. The problem is the 10 car was there, and listen, if you're the 10 of Caleb Weekly, you're doing exactly what you should do, and that is stay high, but that's the 3's line. And he couldn't go low because the 88 was there. I don't think squeezing 3x3 would have been a smart idea. So a little bit of a bad break there with Caleb Weekly. That's just part of the game at Bristol. And with that, Jason Jacoby is going to fall to second position. And in 2 laps, Andrew Ferdinand has opened it up by a half a second now that he's able to continue to run his line of low. Pretty much one of the only drivers to stick down there when the outside's also an option.
And we've seen this so many times. He kind of just plays a little bit with the driver, so to speak. He'll try and keep things balanced, keep the pressure, force them into a mistake or into a tough situation. And once he gets that clean air, he'll take off. There's a reason he's the most red-hot driver 2019 so far, the man in the black Ford. And remember, too, this is where, in 2018, this is where it turned his season around, and it looks like someone's turned around, caution flags out.
Yeah, speaking of turned around, it's the 4 car down and on the apron. Anthony Fredericks has gone for a spin. This one after contact with a 45 machine. We'll get a look at the LSR TV replay, but it looks like Brian Chambliss was trying to make a pass and just kind of got squeezed up by Fredericks. Fredericks gets sideways and spins it around. A pretty tame caution for Bristol standards, but it does bring it out again, and Anthony Fredericks will apologize over the radio for that one. Says that he will claim the caution at lap number 74. So as we pace again and close in on halfway home in tonight's Bristol 200, we'll take a quick opportunity to step aside. When we come back, plenty more action to come. You're watching LSR TV's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series on the iRacing Esports Network. And back live from the Bristol Motor Speedway as we continue action tonight for the Bristol 200, working now under caution flag conditions, lap number 77 to 200, and your race lead gets shuffled up a little bit. Shane Parrish actually going to stay out under this caution, at least for the time being, pick up a bonus point for the lap led. He will now defer down to the safety of pit road, but with a bonus point in his back pocket, he will tend to trickle down to the end of the lead lap right now. That sits 22 cars strong, and is Andrew Fernandez out in control once again. Musical chairs continues, Justin. This time it's Fernandez to the bottom, Jacoby to the outside, flip-flop of the front row that we've seen for the last 2 times.
And this is going to be very difficult, I think, for Jacoby, because we've seen Fernandez just dominate on that bottom side. He's on that preferred line. It's going to be a matter of, can he keep up with him this time? Jacoby showed a decent pace before. Fernandez, though, once he got in the clean air, he took off. But anything can happen here. All it takes is one mix of strategy, one quick caution, say 10 laps, and some drivers staying out to try and get in track position, and it throws all that out of whack. Anything can happen at this point as they still line up behind the pace car. But keep in mind, there's some good performances some of these drivers. Kurt Rittenberg already up from 27th to 11th position in the 44 machine in one of his stronger runs this season.
Yeah, there's a couple of drivers there mid-pack. I know you mentioned after the first yellow, somebody like an Eric Stanford or a Connor Horn going from the high teens to the top 10, that if you can keep your car clean, you got a good chance to make it up some spots here at Bristol. There's some of the drivers just on the cusp of being able to deliver on some of those. Rittenberg's one you mentioned, 27th to 11th. Matthew Miller started 29th position. He's now 13th. Brian Lambert, 26th up to 14th. So certainly a handful of drivers are playing it smart, keeping their car in one piece. And with 80 laps down at 120 still to go from Bristol, are looking to pick up a lot of valuable points in the 7th race of this 2019 campaign. Race start due up, though. It's Fernandez, Jacoby, Kamer, George, and Washington. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, the big thing to keep in mind, it's the first time this evening that Andrew Fernandez has been the control car for a race start, and make no mistake about it, he'll rock it out in front as we go back green, and Kyle Kamer trying to make some noise, challenging Jacoby for second, comes up short and what a move to the outside, shuts the door on George, who is coming in hot.
Well, he knew he had to do it if he didn't want to fall back along with that 98 machine. And that was pretty bold, to say the least. They think they were within a couple inches of that getting worse. But now Kamer's on the preferred line, and Washington is stuck in a freight train. He does, however, have the 19 machine with the same sponsorship closing in behind, as well as McClendon, who's a bit slow on corner exit. He might be able to slot him behind if he's able to time it up right.
And you can see that group of cars there again. David Washington just has some sort of impeccable ability of finding himself pinched down on the inside of the racetrack this time, trying to find a way up that sees the 9, the 24, and at a little bit further distance back, the number 19 machine of Eric Stanford as well. So he wants to get up and into a decent position before, obviously, all of these drivers get up and around him. The battle up front continues to see Fernandez Jacoby fight, but it is not of that high critical importance yet, with Fernandez holding a 2/10 of the second advantage. But look at Washington. Very clear, Justin. He doesn't want the bottom, so he's not going all the way down to the apron. He's basically trying to run as high up as he can while still being down low, and he's really been squeezed in the 24 car.
Yeah, that's exactly the good teller of saying, okay, I can't run this bottom side, and he's going to make contact, nearly spun around with George, able to save it though.
And what a job to keep that thing on the racetrack after the 98 got up and into the left rear quarter panel. And not only is it a save by George, he didn't even skip a beat, continues to hold P4 with the number 24 machine of Horn still there. I think finally Washington's got some daylight. Yes, he does. It will involve conceding that fight with Horn, but at least he's able to get up onto the outside, and that leaves only Stanford down low.
And Stanford, I think, if he did make a smart decision thinking big picture, he'd tuck in right now, going to actually stick to the bottom. He is the teammate, of course, of Andrew Fernandez, so I think right now he's maybe trying to see if he can match his kind of line and see if that will work for him as well. But he's a little bit more deeper and does have the damage at both sides that will slightly affect him. While, of course, you want to minimize damage at Bristol, it's hard to avoid it, to say the very least. 110 to go.
110 laps to go. You got to think at this point in the race you have a decent idea of what race car you've got underneath you, what, if anything else, you're going to be able to make happen as this race continues on. I think that, barring incidents, we're seeing an Andrew Frinar's led race. Jason Jacoby, I think, the second best car by a good bit. And on the radio right there was Dave Washington chatting with the 24 machine as a couple of drivers are getting a little bit antsy with one another as we get close to that midway race break.
Yeah, at this point, a lot of drivers thinking track position, not wanting to, be in an incident. And also at the same time, they don't want to be held up because they know if they get held up, there's a chance that you're going to have more cars behind you. And you can see how Washington's driving. He knows McClendon's back there. He knows Stanford's back there. If he makes a mistake or has to check up for horn, let's say, either one of them might try and pounce for his position in 6th.
Yeah, no doubt. So there's obviously a lot of pressure on you to, not to lay over. I don't think that's the right term, and certainly Bristol's not a racetrack where that's the first thing that comes to your mind. But, I mean, you want to get aggressive. You go to the inside. You try to make something happen here. The problem is, even if you feel like you've got a chance to make a move on an HBR entry like Connor Horn there in P5, it's not just him. I think the odds of you diving to the inside, getting around the 24, and having enough space to slide in front of him and yet behind George is very slim. So for the 98, you got to look at this as there's 2 cars in front of you. They both really got to make a mistake unless they start fighting with each other for you to be able to make a move on 2 cars like that. So the 98 needs to be concerned right now with that 19 of Stanford. Stanford can go to the inside all he wants. I think if the 98 stays patient up top, he'll be fine here. But again, Bristol also a place that tends to get at your nerves a little bit easier than some of the racetracks. And you can see the 98 trying to do something. He's certainly feeling the pressure for the 19. Eric Stanford, 18th to 7th, making some noise here inside of the top 10.
Yeah, Stanford, I think that bottom side is starting to work for him, in fact, compared to everyone else. As I mentioned, you get a bit more tighter if you stick to the outside line. But that time, Washington's squeeze on the corner exits he's been doing every once in a while to try and diamond off of turn 4 actually hurt Stanford a little bit. The teammate going to try and have to regroup and attempt this again.
And yeah, the 19 tungsten line. It also looks like Scott McClendon in the 51 machine has dropped back a tad bit from this group. That time by the 100 laps complete. 100 laps to go still from Bristol. Let's take a look at our Ford Entertainment Group Midway race break. Andrew Ferdinars, his gap is now at a race high 1.4 seconds over Jason Jacoby, who runs in the number 2 position. Big jump then to 3rd place, Kyle Kamer. This is the group we've been following off for the race start. Thomas J. George still scored in 4th position. Connor Horn is 5th, with David Washington P6. Eric Stanford in 7th, and Scott McClendon in the number 8 spot. Rhett McBride P9. He's 2 seconds off of that group, and rounding out your top 10 is the 45 of Brian Chambliss.
9.5 seconds back of the race leader is Shane Parrish in one of his first races of the 2019 series, and trying to pull away from Matthew Miller, who's closing in quick. Brandon Johnson's in 13th, but Sean Kalis is currently in the 14th position in the Richard Petty 43 font machine. Anthony Fredericks, after falling to 12th in the last pit cycle, currently is in the 15th position, but Brian Lambert in his neon green new paint scheme in the 16th spot. Nicholas Caldwell's 17th position. Andrew T. Jones, after being involved in since before, is trying to hold on to the last car in the lead lap and is about to be passed in real action, while Scott Brotherton and Kurt Redenberg have both been lapped within the past 3 circuits around the track as we look to 21st to 30th heaven.
He also lapped down P21, so Caleb Wheatley's in that same boat, and so is Tom Morano in 22nd. Then you're going to start to talk about the drivers who are a little bit worse for wear. Damage, number 12 of Skylar Shackelford. He's 3 laps down in 23rd. He's ahead of Jeremy E. Miller, who scored in 24th position. And then Brian Backlund on pit road just recently, having to pull down to the pit lane with heavy damage in 25th. Brian Spriggs also down pit road, 26th position. Rest of the drivers out of this race. That includes John Fowler in 27th, Jared Astrop in 28th, William Kruska in 29th, and James Pasquarella in the number 30 position. That is a look at your FEG Midway race break. FEG PC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying an FEG PC. PCs to fit every budget from $540 on up. You can go online to www.fegpc.net. You can mention code LSRTV10 and get your PC build quoted today. Jason Jacoby really starting to fall off now on the longest run of the night, and I'll scratch that. Jason Jacoby isn't really falling off. It's just Andrew Frinars is really pulling away. The gap to second, 4.5 seconds. The gap to third, 8.5 seconds. And we had some questions, and I know we had the discussion with our producer, Brett Justin, before the race, kind of looking at Frinars' times, expecting him to compete on a week-by-week basis in this Full Throttle Cup Series powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. And we saw that P5 in the practice session and wondered if it was going to be enough. And certainly looks like he's got that car dialed in a race trim. Doesn't matter what kind of a racetrack or race it at. If it's a 1.5 miler like Texas we saw just a week ago, if it is a very different racetrack like an ISM Raceway from mid-March. I mean, this 88 machine loves green flag runs and continues to show it tonight. That last lap, 0.3 better than the next best car.
His main strong suit as a driver, long runs. If it becomes caution after caution, it's very hard for him to gain some track position at times we've seen. But when he gets these long green flag runs, he's been showing all season he is the best driver to save tires. And when he saves them for a reason, because he knows he can push the other drivers around him to wear their tires. And in turn, once he gets the pass done when they make a mistake, he can just take off like he's been doing. The one problem, he's going to have to deal with so much traffic right now. You're talking about drivers just outside the top 10 in front of him who are bouncing off the walls. Matthew Miller almost made contact with Weekly, and Johnson nearly went around as well.
And one thing to keep in mind is that it is a special Bristol rule to keep the car off of the wall for an extended period of time. So certainly we're seeing drivers get up and into the outside wall. We'll hold that for a moment. A caution flag is out. And it looks like a slow car that was down on the inside. I saw Caleb Weekly's machine slow. I wonder if the caution flag was for him or not. He didn't go around. No. The 10 just simply lost speed as the yellow came out at the same time.
You know what, one of those battles you've been keeping an eye on for much of the race, both of us rather, was McClendon, Washington, amongst all of that group, Stanford as well. They were really getting antsy in the past couple laps. Stanford was able to pull away, but McClendon dived it in aggressively from the bottom. And as I said, if you don't push up, you're able to get a good run. He pushed up, and he turned himself and the 98 of David Washington to the bottom of the racetrack, brings out the yellow flag on lap 119.
I know we were kind of keeping a half eye on that as well as we went through that midway race break, and it was just way too hot in for Scott McClendon in the number 8 machine and turned him around. So a caution flag is out. Bad break for David Washington, who again was doing his best to be patient and stay on the outside line, and finally dove down to a middle lane. He gets tagged, and he's going to have to try to come down and get that car salvaged as well. Some late cars dive into pit lane after the commitment cone as drivers try to keep track of what pit lane they're supposed to be headed down and onto, but it is a yellow at 80 to go.
And that resets all the strategies as well and brings Frinars really back towards Jason Jacoby, who showed he was at best about the exact same, if not a little bit faster because of the outside line. So Jacoby still has a shot, I think. He's just going to have to hope that he has a chance to make the pass within the first 35 laps of a run at least. This also helps Frinars' teammate, Eric Stanford. Right before that caution, the final 5 laps before the end of that run rather, he finally started pulling the same times nearly as his teammate in Frinars to get away from that traffic, and he's going to be starting on the outside line for this restart.
And that could end up being critical if he wants to maybe make some noise here. It puts him in his preferred lane. And the bottom of the racetrack has been a disadvantage for literally everybody else who has brought us to a green flag this evening, minus the driver of the 88, because he's able to make the inside of the line work. So I still think it's going to be Frinars Jacoby pretty safe on this. Of course, though, now you got the names mixed up a little bit behind them. Eric Stanford, Kyle Kamer those two SK SimRacing machines, race high positions for them as they end up 4th and 5th position here, really with an opportunity to salvage this and get some, best finishes of the season.
Yeah, this is a potentially great run for all of them. And not only that, were we just talking about Shane Parrish outside the top 10 a few moments ago during the halftime report? He's in 7th position right now after the pit cycle while taking 4 tires, plus 17. All of a sudden, we're talking about the Surf Pro green fire and not neon green machine that could also have a chance at the top 10 if this stays green, but who knows? It's Bristol, baby. Anything can happen.
There's no way you're going to lose the 18 machine of Shane Parrish there as he sits tucked in line on the inside of row 4. It'll be a P7 starting position for him, but up front and out of going already, Andrew Freitas to the green as this race sits. 77 laps still to go. Jacoby with a little bit more of a handful, I think, in a turn 1 than last time, but he does hang on to 2nd. Fight is for 3rd. Stanford on the outside. Thomas J. George on the bottom. Again, going to be stung by restarting on the inside line.
Keep an eye on Horn, though. He's really carrying much more speed on the corner exit. He's actually getting held up by Stanford here, so we'll see what he can do. He's able to clear by George. So Horn up to 4th, Stanford to P3. And now if you're George, you need to find a way to get up to the top and quick. First opening is in front of McBride.
The first opening is where McBride is scored in 7th position. We'll see if he finds the space. No, the 5 fights his way through, and Rhett McBride is going to be able to hold the 9 car off. Thomas J. George's battle is going to continue, and some late breaking news. We talked about Andrew Freitas starting on the inside line. The number 88 machine of Andrew Freitas, Justin, is going to be penalized for an illegal lane change on the start of that race, changing lines before the start-finish line, and that call has come down from the top. It is a black flag 1-lap penalty for the 88.
Oh my goodness, that is the worst possible mistake that I think you can ever make at a track like this. This can throw away any chances whatsoever of even a top 20 in this race. You can't do that. You can't make that kind of mistake at a track so small. You can, even with the 1-lap penalty, lose even more so laps at a track like this. He's already gone down and served the pass-through, but he's already lost all his track position.
Yes, pass-through penalty for that, so he's going to be able to get back at it on track. And listen, there's only 12 cars on the lead lap, so he may have an opportunity to get something out of this race. If he's able to get back up to the front in 69 laps and win this thing, then that would be one of the most incredible things we've ever seen. And listen, it is Andrew Freitas, so never say never. But I was watching very closely on some of those earlier restarts where it was not Freitas on the bottom, but I think it was a lot more understandable, Justin. Cars wanting to get to the outside to block that positioning. That's not why Freitas was getting up there. Freitas didn't care about Jason Jacoby. He wasn't trying to block him. He was just trying to get up high so he could arc down low. He was still taking the bottom in 1 and 2, he just wanted to arc down it into the corner to carry more speed, and unfortunately, he just made that move too early. He wasn't thinking about the 3, he was thinking too far down the racetrack and not paying attention to where that start-finish line was.
Exactly, you hit it right on the nose, and that's just about track awareness a little bit. If I was him, you could have still arced it up. You just had to, of course, wait till after that start and finish line. It would have been at a sharper angle, yes, a little bit slower, but he would have still been able to pull away on that bottom side and get some space to still make that arc work into the corner. Just a major mistake. With him still in the race lead, on the lead lap, however, he can still have a chance. He's still one of the fastest cars in the racetrack for 1 and 2. All it takes is 1 or 2 cautions, and he's back in the ballgame.
We'll see how it ends up. Biggest thing for him is he does not lose his lead lap. He is 11.4 seconds off your race leader. Again, the lap times have pretty much been mid to high 15s every single time on all these runs, really, over the course of the night. So Freitas, still a lead lap car, and I think he dodges the bullet there by coming down, and certainly it helps when you come down and serve the penalty from the race lead. I think you serve that from almost anywhere else, and you probably do lose a lap, but he is able to hang on. So all of a sudden, Jason Jacoby finds himself back out in front. Not an unfamiliar place for him. He started on the front row, led a lot of laps earlier on in this race, and finds himself now back out and in front, but it has certainly changed the dynamic of this battle up front because now Eric Stanford, a name I had mentioned, coming to the restart, and the 24 Connor Horn, who's been up here for the better part of the night, they find themselves within a half a second of your race leader and now fighting with each other as the 24 goes down to the inside. All these cars up front, though, are running the top. So once again, you're going to find it very difficult to make moves on one another.
Let me slightly correct you there. Stanford's running the bottom like his teammate was. He started, however, in the race on the top side. It's obvious he adjusted to the race situation. Notice, if I'm able to use the bottom, it will help me. What's also going to help him is we have a cloud for the first time in the race today. We've hit as high as 118 degrees on the track temp. It's dropped -5 since about the halfway point of the race. And that's going to help him save a little bit more if he runs that bottom. The downside is, though, he's got Horn also trying to use the bottom and push up to try and clear him. We got trouble, though, on the inside.
There's a lot of smoke. The 20 and the 21 are both into the inside wall. It is Scott Brotherton and as well the 21 of Brandon Johnson. Oh, and he spins again. Caution flag is out. Matthew Miller with nowhere to go. And a big incident on the back straightaway as those two cars had gotten into the wall, Justin. There was no caution flag. And then as Johnson tried to get back going, spun the tires, came up, and takes the 78 car out.
I think he shifted down to first gear, and as soon as he mashed the gas, and you can do this, it shuffled to the right. And the problem is, it went right into the oncoming traffic. So, bad decision, bad squeal. And now, Johnson's done for the race, and Matthew Miller, who is in the top 10 in a destroyed race car, is in even a worse situation. This could potentially cost him at least a couple laps in damage.
And Johnson's night is done. He immediately takes that car behind the wall and have to assume that that's going to be looked at further post-race by the folks in the race control booth. So another caution flag after it looked like we had gotten away with one. Not often at Bristol, especially, Justin, do you get incidents that don't actually bring it a caution flag, and that one eventually does. But, I mean, I wouldn't even consider the apron here an apron, considering how thin it is. So surprised we didn't get the first yellow, but that's going to have big implications, and so will this trip down to the pit lane. Every single caution, drivers are coming in. We did see some flirt with the two-tire game earlier. Looks like only your race leaders up here deciding to stick with their guns and go 4 tires and fuel. That's the call from Jacoby, who looks like he's going to blend back out and onto the racetrack behind maybe the 24 of Connor Horn.
He took 2, yes. Connor Horn took 2 again. This is the second time he's done this race. Obviously, he's figured out the optimal split between the right side tires and the left side tires to take 2 while still maintaining speed. Usually, it's a window of about, at say the 1.5 miles, under 5 laps, give or take. At Bristol, in some cases, or most cases rather, as long as you didn't overcook your tires, you can get away with a 15-lap split, give or take, without having major lost time or significant handling issues because of the difference. And I think Horn's decided, I want to utilize the track position, try and see if I can keep the clean air and try and hold on. This might be a good move. What also this caution helps, though, is the guy in the black Ford.
He gives an opportunity for Andrew Farinas to get some fresh tires. Not that he needed the help of those or anything, but he's going to gain a spot and ends up with cars in front of him wrecking out of this race. In that incident, he immediately jumps from 11th to 9th. That'll put him on the inside line. It's not the best position maybe because I think it's going to be a logjam in front of him. Listen, he's got no issues making the bottom line work. The problem is, I think the cars in front of him who are going to be on the bottom aren't going to be able to make that one work. So, depending on how quickly this race lead gets sorted out after the restart, I'm immediately darting my eyes back to see what the 88 does, because maybe you get 2-3 more of these restarts if a typical Bristol race plays out and you got a few more wrecks in the bank and some late race restarts, but this thing is not over yet.
It's nowhere near over. I would still keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on Stanford maybe too, because he's been starting to use that bottom not as quickly as Farinas on the long run, but he's also shown some pace. I still think it could be anyone's game, or anyone's race rather. All it takes though is one caution though, and it could be all scrambled at the last Great Coliseum.
Lights on top of the iRacing.com pace car are out. This race start comes with 149 laps complete and 51 laps to go in tonight's Bristol 200. For the first time, it is Connor Horn in control. Green flag in the air, and a good jump for him. Stays on the bottom, so no penalty. And he goes to the race lead. Stanford unable to get to P2. It's Jacoby in second.
And nearly bumped Kamer Ickman towards the wall, but able to get up to the third spot. Now here's the big test, though. Can Horn hold on in front of Jacoby, who's been much more quicker on some of the corner exits? And will Freenars take things patient or go right on the attack? Nearly took it 3 wide on McClendon, and George, the 88 machine, did. He wants to go now.
He wants to go, and you can see as they stack up at the inside line with Freenars behind the number 8 that he makes a move to the outside, not having faith in Kamer to be able to make the move. Freenars for the first time this evening running an outside line. It's going to work. He gets up and around the 8 machine, not clear yet. I assume once he's totally through, he'll dive down low on the 5 at McBride, and there it is, slicing to the bottom. Here comes Freenars.
And a great dive on the inside. And he's going to try and keep this working. I don't blame him, though, for going to the outside with McClendon, because McClendon was going a little bit on the mirror drive. He was bobbing a little bit on the corner entries to hold on to the bottom. As you might notice, that's the line McClendon's been trying a little bit at the beginning of runs, then moving back to the top when that doesn't work. Now, it's the question, can Freenars get up to the front without a caution? There's still a decent amount of time. However, it's 15 seconds a lap. That's not a lot of time overall on the circuit.
It doesn't take a long time, certainly, and you can see with Freenars now, he finds himself in a tricky spot. He can't just get around McBride. This is the dilemma that I had brought up when we were watching a battle for the race lead prior to this yellow. If you go to the inside, it's not good enough to clear McBride. There's no spot for you there. You got to get the 5 and the 9, or the 5, the 9, and the 8, because they're all stacked up at a line on the outside. It's making it very difficult for Freenars to be able to get back up to that very outside. That's why he got penalized, because he changed lanes too early. He likes entering right up against the wall, going all the way down to the apron. When there's a car on his right-hand side, he can't do that. Opportunity there. The 5 keeps the nose. He's going to keep at it, but Andrew Freenars in P6, driving the hardest he's been all night. Again, an opportunity, but the hole was just a little bit too small.
Yeah, the hole's going to be even more smaller this time. McBride not going to give him any sort of space. And on top of that, you have Stanford now using the bottom, and Jacoby still keeping up with the back bumper of Horn. They're actually running exactly the same lap times. And now it looks like a little bit of checkups on the outside are helping Freenars now to try and clear by Kamer, nearly lost on the bottom side.
Almost gets there, but the 8 machine holds him off. Freenars, I think, clear right there in the center of the corner. If he's able to get back into the gas, he's got it. Yes, sir. Freenars gets around all 3 of those cars that were on the outside, and now he's up to 4th.
And now this is where he can use that preferred line you were talking about. Arc it from the wall, get to the bottom of the racetrack, arc it back up with as much speed as you can in the corner exit. You can see how big of a difference is. The fastest car on the racetrack, 15.365, 2/10 quicker than the race leader, a 10th quicker than his teammate in Stanford. This could turn into a 4-car battle for the race lead.
We'll see how quickly he's able to close in on these two, because look at the battle for the race lead as it sits. Jason Jacoby has been able to close into the back of Connor Horn, and he is plastered on the back end of that number 24 machine as they run 1-2. Stanford a little bit off, continuing the low line in 3rd. And here comes Freenars. Last lap for your race leader, a 15.5. For the drive of the 88, it was a 15.4. He's coming as we get 35 laps to go.
And he's going to be in the perfect spot, him and Stanford. Still a 10th faster, 2/10 in fact faster than Stanford. Now it's the matter of how does he navigate his own teammate here. And on top of that, Horn might decide to say go towards a block position, or Jacoby. So this could get interesting. On top of the lap traffic, that will force them single file in the next couple laps. If you are some of these drivers, you want to make the move right about now as Freenars goes to the outside.
He goes to the outside of the 19 machine. Stanford is holding his preferred line, so the 88's going to have to go up top. Seems like he can make that race car stick wherever he puts it. Passes on the outside, drives down to the inside, makes it look so easy. Farinars to third, and all of this as they catch up to some thick lap traffic. We've seen it play a factor tonight. Horn to the inside. Jacoby tries to go up top. 3 wide with Kalis in the middle of it all, and Jacoby going to get boxed out here as he goes to the middle now. Still 3 wide for the race lead, and lappers. Horn still up front, shuts the door on Jacoby. Somehow 1, 2, 3, no changes.
How in the world are they still alive? Farinars actually held up by Jacoby cutting down a little bit. That would have been a wreck in any other situation. 3 wide for the race lead.
The 3 goes to the middle. It's the 88 machine of Farinars on the brakes this time. Farinars a race winner this season multiple times over. Jacoby a race winner this season as well. Caution flag will fly at lap 172. It is Tom Morano into the inside wall on the back straightaway, all on his own to slow us down.
Actually, the outside wall first. He hooked it to the left, then overcorrected and smacked the wall down the backstretch on the outside. And the 18th place car puts us under caution. Oh my word. There's a chance for the drivers to breathe. However, I don't think they wanted a chance there. That was some of the most impressive racing I've ever seen at the fastest half mile.
I mean, they were 3 wide with that gaggle of lapped cars, and nobody was willing to lift. Connor Horn thought about staying out. He comes down to the pit lane, and now here's an interesting question, Justin, as they hit the pit stalls. Connor Horn took 2 tires last time. Can he afford to take 2 again, or because he did it last time, he goes for no, he goes for 2 only. Let's see what Farinars does now as the 88's into his box.
This is a bold idea. He didn't take 2 right sides. He took 2 left sides to try and balance that out. So that's a very rare call you see here on the iRacing service.
4 for the 88.
And everybody else, it looks like for the most part, you got Stanford, though, took 2. On top of that, Kyle Kamer took 2 tires. Caldwell's still in the pit boxes, so he'll drop down. This is a bold move, I think, for Horn, because usually taking 2 with left sides does not work because of how much tighter your car will be.
And what a run that was. I think Connor Horn now is going to have some help with the addition of some other cars taking 2 tires. Gives him a small buffer between he, Farinars, and Jacoby in one of the better battles for the race lead that we have seen all season long. And it's only going to heat back up with a restart just outside of 20 laps to go on deck. But, I mean, Connor Horn, at the point it was going to make before the yellow flag came out, is fighting against guys like Farinars, a 4-time winner this season, a defending series champion, Jason Jacoby, who again made his debut late last season, ran good, finally got that race win from Auto Club Speedway just a couple of weeks ago. If Connor Horn's going to get his first RealSimRacing Cup Series win this evening, he's going to have to earn it. Jacoby going to be scored 4th. Farinars is ending up scored P5, with, of course, you mentioned Stanford and Kamer both jumping in between them, and race leader Connor Horn with that 2-tire play.
And this is going to be the big test. I think it's going to be, I'm more curious on Stanford on top of Horn to see how he handles, since he is a bottom side driver compared to the top line of this racetrack. But at the same time, you never can count out that man in the black Ford. He was super quick once he got his preferred line from outside to the inside throughout the corners. I wouldn't be surprised if he is going to be very aggressive here, because we're going to have under 25 laps to go, coming to 24 this time by. This is the time where you say, it's Bristol, baby. If you want to win now, you better go for it right in these next few moments.
Lights on top of the pace car are out. The wave buys will vacate the empty space, and Connor Horn pulls up to the back of the Mustang that paces the field here. It is Horn control car Stanford to the outside of the front row. These 2 drivers, both starting 18th and 15th respectively, will control the field. Kyle Kamer inside of row 2 third, and then 4 tires, Jacoby 4th, Farinars 5th, and everybody else from there on back. Pace cars down, 177 laps complete. The biggest restart of the night. Green flag in the air. Connor Horn takes off to turn 1. He's there. 3 wide for second. Here comes Jacoby up the middle to the outside of the 8 and to the inside of the 19. Can he make it stick? Yes, he does.
And Horn's having a problem rotating. He's in the
wall. The 24's into the wall. Connor Horn around. Kamer goes with him, and he wrecks from the race lead.
I told you if you took 2 left sides, you would be very tight, and Horn just learned it the hard way. He could get off the corner, hit the safer barrier, and collects a few different race cars, including Kamer, who had such a strong run. Caution is out. The gamble for the 24 does not work out. And once again, your 2 favorites again are 1-2.
And again, Connor Horn had to take, I think, you mentioned he took the left sides to balance out after taking the right sides only last time. Felt like he had to defend that track position. There was no doubt that he had the worst tires out of anybody in that group. He bounces off the wall, comes down, and gets into Jacoby. Jacoby's lucky that he survives this one. Kamer, a tough break for him, who was having a career run in second position, who gets hooked and gets turned around. Both those cars that into the outside wall, and Connor Horn claims the responsibility for that caution flag immediately. It was within 5 laps of a restart, so again, it will be 2 penalty points for him. But that's the kind of an incident, Justin, that I have absolutely no problem with. That's a driver looking for his first win in a series that was willing to go checkers or records.
And he knew, too, if he took 4 tires, he might, A, not get the handling one ever again, and B, lose all the track position he was gaining by taking 2 right side tires. Yeah, it hurt his handling by far, but I don't blame him from taking the risk and saying, this is too late in the race to know that this could be the possible last pit stop any of these cars make tonight, for the most part. If I don't do this and stay up towards the front, I may never get up to the race lead ever again in this night.
So with that, 2 of the competitors fall out of the race, and we are back to the Jason Jacoby, Andrew Fridars show. Andrew Fridars had started this race P5 to work his way through the field a little bit, has shown impeccable speed, though, mainly on his comeback from a penalty. Was the control car for a restart in the second half of this race, changed the lines, went from the bottom to the top before the start-finish line. That is a penalty, took a pass-through, was so efficient on that pass-through, he didn't even lose his lead lap status. Got back up in 11th position a couple of yellows later, and he is now on the outside of the front row, coming up for a restart that should be right at or about 15 laps to go. But again, Jacoby with the opportunity to pull a few car lengths. If he can get 3 or 4 of them, I think he gives himself a real chance here.
Yeah, I think he's in a great position because Fridars struggled to get by him on even on his preferred inside line. If he can defend, this is where he can do it. The problem is, Jacoby's not really gone to the bottom, if at all, tonight. He's gone to there a couple times, tried to diamond off the corner a few times. He's not used that line if he needs to say defend, compared to what Andrew has been doing all night. It's going to be very difficult to try and get the win tonight if you're Jacoby, but it is doable. 1 lap to go on the pace car.
And all of a sudden, the sun goes behind the clouds, and maybe we've got a ton of extra grip here for what it could be the final restart of the night with Jacoby down low and Fridars to the outside. The other question is, maybe the top 2 can get along. It's Bristol, so maybe not. I mean, they do have a little bit of history, but maybe they can keep it off each other for the most part. But the question, I think, is what are the rest of the cars on the grid going to be able to do? Because a couple of yellows here, some short runs, I think, really benefits the 3, assuming that Jacoby can get those right rear tires hooked up and get this car going off for the restart. Pace car to head down it in. The number 3 adjacent Jacoby wants to get at a dodge. He's off it on the throttle. Green flag. 16 laps to go. He clears for the race lead, and Fridars should hang on to second. Yes, he does.
And that cold temperature we talked about could also help Fridars, though. It's 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the coldest it's been. Trouble, though, in the front stretch.
Big issues so far, though. The yellow's not out, and now there it is, as all the way around goes the number 64 of Andrew T. Jones. An incident comes out. It's not started by Jones. Unfortunately, though, He's the driver that actually ends up, I think, triggering the caution flag in the Sim's mind, but the incident review, we'll go back to where all of this started, and that was the 5 machine getting into the back of, that was Rick McBride, sorry, the 5, getting into the back of the 19 of Eric Stanford off the corner.
Yes, McBride, bigger, stronger run than Stanford. Remember, Stanford lost his front bumper, actually, from the last caution. So a major difference in the incident. Multiple drivers smacking to the inside pit wall, including Parrish. We were talking about having such a good position after a few cautions ago. And we're back on our caution again with the same 1, 2, 3. And Thomas George and Kyle Kamer, though, cycle up into the top 5.
5 machine will claim the responsibility for the caution there, so it'll be an EOL penalty for Rhett McBride, who, again, with the damage, would have been pretty close to the back of the lead lap anyway, so I think a smart play for him, and that beautiful number 5 car is no more, as it is heavily damaged, and he trickles down to the back. But again, now caution flag takes 4 or 5 laps out of the very few laps that were remaining for Jason Jacoby to play the defense on.
And that could hurt and help him at the same time. Help him as in, let's say we get an air quick caution. There might be a chance that, let's say we only have like 2-3 laps for the final chance of the race. That's in a potential play. The downside is, if you don't get that caution, Freenars looked even quicker than Jacoby was in terms of how quick he was able to grip up on the bottom because of how cold this racetrack's gone. Remember that point 2 I made, it was 100 degrees just, what was it, 2 minutes ago, Evan?
Yeah.
It's 93 degrees. This could play perfectly for Freenars to hook up on the bottom and just blow by him.
And we'll see if the shade stays as the track temps continue to drop now. 92 degrees in the cooler conditions. Of course, you could have a restart where the first 2 laps are in the shade, then the sun comes back out. To get all of that, the dynamic sky, the dynamic track conditions play a huge factor in this iRacing service, just as it does with the real-life equivalency of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. And I mean, if this hasn't been a Bristol race, I don't know what could tell you about it. You got a lot of carnage, a lot of cars torn up, and some fantastic hard racing up at the front of the field. I hope that this race gets the finish that it deserves. 10 laps to go this time by. We wait to see when the lights go out on top of the pace car.
They might be coming towards 1 to go maybe this time by, but you talked about it. It's Bristol, baby. Anything can happen. Lots of hard bumping and banging can happen. And we have right now 13 drivers on the lead lap, where if that bumping and bang goes over the top, they might be able to gain some valuable points in track position. And speaking of track position, guys like Stanford, as we talked about, plus 12. Nicholas Caldwell, plus 21 since the start. Fredericks back in the top 10.
Don't count out as we go on to board with the 51 of McClendon here in third. If these top 2 get into each other, Scott McClendon's in a great spot. Thomas J. George, Kyle Kamer, Eric Stanford, all of these drivers have a chance. It all depends on what happens in front of them with the 2 cars that have been far and large the best 2 of the night, at least for those that are left. And Connor Horn, you know, gave it a great effort. His night falls short, but I think Jacoby Freenar is the best 2 of the night. If they keep off each other, it should be amongst those, but we'll see. Pace car down it in. 9 more laps to decide it. It's a green flag and a good start for Jacoby, but not an excellent one. Freenars is going to be pretty much unchallenged for second as he slides to the bottom and now tries to make up a 4-car length disadvantage.
And Jacoby's now trying the bottom side, knowing he needs to try and match Freenars if he's going to be able to try and defend. And now Freenars is doing the smart thing. He's trying to do the opposite of Jacoby.
Yeah, he's now flip-flopped. The 3's at the bottom of the racetrack, and Freenars is on the outside. It's the opposite. That is what made these cars as fast as they have been all night long. The gap 4/10. The battle for third sees George now in front of McClendon as they sit not all that far back. Both those cars at agreeance on the outside. Freenars, though, quickly back to the bottom.
And now he's going to have to hope if he can catch up pretty quickly. Jacoby just set the fastest lap of the race just a couple moments ago. And in practice, when the track went this ice cold, this was when Jacoby was able to run the most consistent, ran in the 14.2s in practice when this went to this temperature range.
And you can see the 88 machine for the first time is not on the attack. It almost looks like he's struggling with the handling on that machine. Curious if he's blown back by the speed that Jason Jacoby has found, or if Ferdinand's really enjoyed those hot, slick conditions and was really able to thrive in that atmosphere. We're past the point to no return. A yellow flag would end it as Jason Jacoby looks for 3 laps to go.
And he's setting the fastest laps of his race overall, even faster than Ferdinand's now. In the 6s, Ferdinand's has dropped to the 7s. It might be Jacoby's race to lose as McClendon dives it underneath George.
McClendon to the inside. He can't make it stick. That battle is for the final step on the podium. I don't think it is going to happen as McClendon slides a little bit further back into P4. But here they come looking for the white nylon to fly. Jason Jacoby, white flag in the air. Final time around Bristol. The gap closes once more, but Andrew Ferdinand is going to be about 6 or 7 car lengths too far back. And for the second time this year, Jason Jacoby, a Monday night winner.
An excellent win for Jacoby. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, you had to deal with one of the most dominant drivers of the season in Ferdinand, but the track conditions went the right place for him at the right time, to the best conditions for him to go pull away for the checkered flag. A best deserved victory, able to get the perfect grip amount he needed to pull away to the safe distance.
And maybe that little bit of a late race change in the sun diving behind the clouds was the difference maker, but Andrew Ferdinand ends up second to Jason Jacoby as he burns it down on the front straightaway. Now a 2-time winner. And I know we mentioned at the start of the night that it was Andrew Ferdinand having to win 4 of the last 5. Jacoby, how about have a streak of your own? Winner of 2 of the last 3.
And he's starting to catch a little on fire. He's been battling with Ferdinand all season long in a lot of those wins that he's gotten in the 4 of the past 5. And Jacoby able to break through again for the first time since Auto Club. Also, his 5th top 5 of the season. Just 1 back of the overall season leader, Ferdinand.
He's really having fun now, and it'll certainly make the battle between those two continue to grow. It's not going to be by a lot because they only finish 1 position apart of one another as Jason Jacoby brings the celebration to the pit lane, but it will close a little bit as well, the battle for the championship, as those two drivers continue to battle for the top spot in points as we work towards the ultimate goal of qualifying for the 2019 playoffs. So Jason Jacoby is headed to Bristol Motor Speedway victory lane. We will catch up with him and the rest of your top finishers in a moment. Before we do so, we'll step aside one final time, and when we come back, we'll go trackside, talk with your top finishers, and get you set for next week's race from the Richmond Raceway. You've been watching LSR TV's coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. The post-race show is next on LSR TV, your home for sim racing. This broadcast is the
the most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSR TV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSR TV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. And back live from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway, where LSR TV's coverage of the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health continues. An excited finish tonight from Thunder Valley as we welcome you back into the LSR TV booth. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince upstairs with you as we will go trackside, talk with your top finishers in just a moment. First, before we do so, let's take a look top to bottom at tonight's Ford Entertainment Group full race results. It is Jason Jacoby, two-time winner now on 2019, gets it by half a second atop of Andrew Fredar's Thomas J. George. Your pole sitter was there all night. He ends up in third. We'll be trackside with all of them in just a moment. Scott McClendon, Eric Stanford, great runs for those two as they round out the top 5. Connor Horn is able to recover from a wreck while defending a battle for the race lead. He ends up P6, a great salvage for a heavily torn up 24 car. Kyle Kamer finishes this race in 7th position with Nicholas Caldwell in 8th, Anthony Fredericks in 9th, and Shane Parrish rounding out your top 10.
Brian Chambliss quietly finished off in 11th tonight, 4 seconds back of the race lead. While Rhett McBride, after the contact before the end of the longest line, was able to get to 12th spot. Kurt Rittenberg was the last driver on the lead lap in 13th. David Washington, he was a part of a lot of those top 5 battles in the early going of the race. Finishes the first car a lap down in 14th. Skylar Shackelford had a very rough time at the last Great Coliseum. Finished off in 15th spot with Brian Lambert rounding out the top 16. Sean Kalis finished off in 17th, while Jeremy E. Miller, after being involved in an early incident, finished 3 laps down in 18th. Scott Brotherton finished off 19th after that wreck down the backstretch on the apron, while Caleb Weekly rounded out the top 20.
And continuing through, Deej drivers now double-digit laps down, 13 to back. If you're talking about 21st, Andrew T. Jones, most of them out of the race. 22nd, Tom Morano with Brian Spriggs, Matthew Miller, and Brandon Johnson, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Brian Backlund ends up 26th position in this one. John Fowler is 27th. Jared Astrop, 28th. William Kruska, 29th. And James Pasquarella rounds out your 30-car field. That is a complete look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEG PC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying an FEG PC. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. You can visit www.fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10 and get your build quoted today. Instead of heading down to Victory Lane, we go up on top of the roof at Bristol Motor Speedway, standing by with the driver of the number 3 machine, Jason Jacoby, a race winner tonight from Thunder Valley. We're with him now. Jason, congratulations on the win. Once again, it's a Monday night that comes down between you and Andrew Frenar as you end up on top for your second win in 2019.
Thank you, Evan, and thank you to everyone for watching. Man, it's really cool, but I was really sorry to see Andrew get the black flag, but we were talking. He's like, it's all fair in game because, you know, the whole rule before changing lanes for start-finish line, which is real NASCAR rules as well, I do believe. So, but, man, I think I'm really thankful to get the win. I know I was fixing to go a lap down, even though I was, able to run second place there. Andrew, I think, would have lapped us all if we had gone green all the way. But like I always say, Andrew makes us better. And I've been sim racing since 2004, albeit not all 15 years since then. But he's definitely the best I've ever raced against in league racing since 2004. So, man, I'd like to thank Ford Entertainment Group, which is also a great sponsor of the channel that y'all are watching on LSR TV and iRacing Esports Network. And if you guys need to get a computer to get an iRacing, the Ford Entertainment Group offers the lowest prices guaranteed. So FEGPC.net will hook you up with a brand new PC, lower price than anyone else will be able to. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I will say it was a ton of fun racing with everybody, and it was really cool that we were all able to have such good close racing out there.
It certainly looked like the theme was that drivers would work on the outside of the racetrack, and one of the few exceptions to that rule had been Andrew all night long working on the bottom. And then all of a sudden, we get one final restart in this race. The sun goes behind the clouds, the temperatures drop way down, and then you go on the defensive and take his line away. Just tell us about that move.
That's exactly right. So I thought that if I took the line away, I don't know much about aerodynamics. I don't know much about car handling and how these work, but I've heard, if you get in front of someone, it takes the air off the nose or something like that. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I figured that, like you said, I take the defensive line because I think the high line, we got a run earlier in the race, and I thought, well, next time we get a chance, I'm going to run the high line in 3 and 4, but low line in 1 and 2, because Andrew was pacing me off of 1 and 2. I was able to catch him off of 4, and so that was going to be my strategy. But then I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to run the bottom in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 on this last restart, just in case it affects the handling of his car. And obviously, definitely going to do it in 1 and 2 because he seems to really be catching me there. And then the previous green flag run that we had enough time to race, I figured out Andrew was really driving hard into 3, so I didn't even want to really give him the low line in 3. So I'm like, yeah, I'm running the bottom all the way around all 4 corners.
Well, it ends up working out for you. You find your way back into victory lane, and after, making your debut in this series late last year, of course, competing this year now as you guys look to make a full-time effort, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll be talking about you competing for a championship if you guys can keep the speeds up to come so close to so many of them and to not be able to end up the driver on top now, to have won 2 of the last 3. Well, how much of a confident booster is that for you?
It's a big confidence booster. I think, these last few weeks in sim racing for me, especially in RSR Full Throttle Cup Series, it really been a confidence booster because, the more confidence you have, the faster you go. And I think it's showing with the results, or at least most of the runs here. And I always got to say, hashtag so blessed, thanks to God for the talent and everything to be able to be up here. But, yeah, man, some extra confidence would certainly help me run faster and hopefully keep up or maybe end up on the top end of things when racing with Andrew here. He's amazing. But, yeah, it's just been a great time out here and such good racing, like I said earlier on in this race, too.
Well, tonight, our short track certainly brought us some excited racing. You guys were 3 wide there with some lapped cars, didn't seem to care. It was a great show for the folks at home, and another one due up as we head next week to the Richmond Raceway. What's your outlook for round 8?
Oh, man, I love that track, and I think with this new package, it's going to be absolutely just so fun to drive. So I hope I can keep it up front, but regardless, I know it's going to be a blast to drive out there. And so every single race this year I'm looking forward to, but Richmond's going to be special.
We look forward to that one, but we'll let you celebrate a win from the Bristol Motor Speedway. Jace, we appreciate your time. Again, congratulations, and we'll catch you next Monday night.
Thank you, Evan. Thanks, everyone, for watching. See you guys next Monday night.
The race winner in the Bristol 200, second on 2019, Jason Jacoby headed home with the checkered flag. And on the flip side of things, not normally in the catbird seat on this one, but it is a P2 finish this time around for the driver of the number 88 machine. Still a lot of points, still a great night. Trackside with their second place finisher, Andrew Ferdinars, is Justin Prince.
Thank you very much, Evan and Andrew. It was a heck of a drive tonight. You looked like one of the fastest drivers until the final restart when a cloud came over the racetrack, and things seemed to flip a little bit. Jacoby became the faster driver on the colder track. Talk us through what happened during that final restart coming towards less than 10 laps to go.
Truthfully, we pitted there, and I think we had, 30 some odd laps, 25 when we were taking the green. I needed to go green. I did not have a chance on the short run. So when we came to 10, I knew I didn't have a shot in the world. You saw me trying all different kinds of lines. I needed a long run, and I knew that. And through all the tests I ran with Afix and NIS this week, I knew if it came down to a 30-lap run, anything under that, I wasn't gonna win unless I was in the lead. And still, I've choked away a whole bunch of races this week, so I knew as soon as it was 10 laps to go, I'm just gonna throw what I could at the win. But I knew I wasn't getting him.
Did you feel anything different handling-wise when Jacoby went to the bottom to try and match your line, essentially? He thought it was something involving taking the air off the nose, although he said that he didn't feel like he knew what he was talking about. How did you feel, once he started switching lines nearly in front of you, and did it affect any handling, if you don't mind me asking?
No, truthfully, the car felt the same. You got to imagine earlier in that race, I ran him down running the bottom, and he was running the top. That affected my line more because he's up there, and I can't come up the corner and hit him. But it felt the same. Just the steering ratio and the brake bias and the offset I run, I need a long run. And like I said, when it came in the 20 laps to go, I kind of knew I was done for.
What made you so much better on the bottom, if you don't mind me asking, compared to the top? Because you're one of the few drivers, I think, on the entire service that are able to ride that bottom with precision without pushing up and carry as much speed as possible, as we've seen, without really burning up the tires. In fact, saving the tires, as seen a lot of times, if you were able to make it work. How do you make it work better than so many different drivers in iRacing?
You know what's funny is last year I was able to do the same thing, and we had one spot better in the outcome, we won. But this year it was interesting. Earlier in the week, when I talked to you guys last week, the Highline was dominant, and you could not run the bottom and could not save tires. And they had a patch actually come out. I think it was on Thursday that kind of changed it a little bit, and the bottom was better, but still not runnable. And then tonight, the track was so much hotter than I've seen in NIS and AFIX all week, and I think that really made the Highline tighter and the bottom work a lot. What I was doing really was just drive it nice and easy to the bottom. And what you do is you put your left tires almost below that black, and there's grip down there, surprisingly, and you can kind of finesse the throttle, work it off. And as long as you don't take it all the way out to the wall, it saves tires.
Sort of like a iRacing version of the PJ1, or traction compound, rather. But Richmond, though, is on next on the schedule. How do you feel about going to Richmond Raceway?
Pretty good. I know last year, both races, we led the most laps. We won the fall race. We almost had the spring race won. We got moved by Braden Bowie at the end there, but we could have easily had two. I say that, but this build, I don't like any tracks. This build, it changed so much, and I'm really, really struggling to get it. I know it don't look like it on Monday nights, but throughout the week, I'm just with everybody else, and for whatever reason, on Monday, I figure something out. So, usually that's one track that I like. I know David Washington, good to have him back tonight. He loves that track too, so definitely going to have to watch him, and of course, Jason and all them, but, I'm excited to go try it out, see what it's all about with this new package.
Before I let you go, Andrew, is there anyone you want to thank for being a part of your top 3 finish tonight?
Yeah, I just want to thank my brother for building computers, my dad, grandpa, Sean, everybody who supports me, all my friends and family, everybody in this Aegis Motorsports team, David Washington, I said, Sean Kalis, sksimracing.com, he's got a lot of good stuff there, it's an eBay site, big supporter, congrats on his new kid there. Kyle Kammer came home with an even finish, Eric Stanford, I know he was up there for a while, I know I'm forgetting a lot of people. All you guys in the booth, especially Evan for the pass-through penalty, you got me. I definitely changed lanes, so way to keep a good eye on that. And you guys for broadcasting, all the drivers, I love racing with you guys, and all the fans. I hope we put on a good show, and you guys enjoyed it.
You absolutely put on a great show, especially that 3-wide battle for the race lead at one point with lap traffic mixed in. Congratulations on the second place finish.
Hey, thanks so much. Have a good week, guys.
You too. That was Andrew Freenosh coming away with the second place finish today. And as Jason Jacoby mentioned, he felt hashtag blessed. For, I think, Andrew, it was hashtag one spot too short.
Certainly the story of the week as Andrew Freenosh will look to get a little bit of revenge next week, but another driver who was up and in the conversation all night finished third. I'm trackside with the driver of the number 9 machine, Thomas J. George. Thomas, congratulations. It's a great result for you. I know that, you probably feel like you wanted a little bit extra after watching yet again another Jason Jacoby and Andrew Faridar's show, but you guys had speed. You start this in on pole, and you really don't hang out in the back much at all. You kept the car up front and en route to a good result.
Yeah, it's actually just nice to finish a race with a fast car that I didn't get caught up in somebody else's wreck or something like that for probably seems like the last 3 weeks. So it's a good result there. I mean, it's racing. You never know what's going to happen. It's part of the deal. Um, I thought we had a top 5 car at least. We put ourselves into a bit of a pickle there when I stayed down the first caution. I actually expected a couple more people to stay out at least and at least hold up a little bit there. But overall, I'm pretty good happy with the result. Last restart there, I tried to get the ADA as quick as I could, but I mean, when the truck had the cloud cover over there, you had to pretty much just send it and hope it stuck, and we were all doing that. I think at the one moment where the 51 tried to dive it underneath me, that kind of messed up my rhythm a bit, but got right back into it. So overall, good result, and can't complain about it.
But you mentioned having some fast cars that aren't getting the results that you would want, and you come to a place at a Bristol Motor Speedway, maybe not necessarily at the track that I would look at and say, well, this is the race that I'm going to have the fast car and not get wrecked at. I mean, the car does have some battle scars on it, but certainly I think qualifying right up at the front helps you stay out of some of the chaos. How do you make it through 200 laps at Bristol?
At Bristol or any short track, you have to just have the patience and have a little bit of luck on your side. I felt like, ironically enough, the short track side of this 2019 package we have is better for my style than the 2015, or not 2015, the 550 horsepower package. Sorry. I mean, Phoenix, I had a fast car. I felt like that was a race-winning car, and circumstance where I got put in a bad spot there on one of the restarts there, kind of as my phone goes off. I felt like the short track side of things, you have to know how to rotate the car better. You have to have patience and you have to have luck. So, I mean, it's one of those things where everything's got to come together for the most part. And hopefully, going to the home track next week at Richmond, hopefully to put this baby in victory lane, get a 6th career win in Full Throttle.
Would certainly be a fun way for you to get the job done, but it is a hot rod looking at a nine machine. I think it's always one of the best looking cars on the grid, and you're able to get a result. I think that you guys have been long deserving. Second top 5 of the season, third top 10. We'll let you get out of here, Thomas. Anybody else you want to say hi to while we got you?
Just all the teammates back in the shop, especially Greg Evans. He's the one that painted the car, so definitely a great design on his part. His sponsor, I Can't Design, apparently. It's a weird name, I know. Also, I think we have a code still going on for iRacing iFlag. If you use code SteelHorse, you get 15% off. So always a good little thing to have, a nice little gadget. And just thank all teammates back at the shop there. You guys for broadcasting. I wish my phone would stop going off. If you can hear that, I apologize. Like I said, it's a good job. I like it. We're having fun so far this year.
Well, it is a good result for you guys, Thomas. We appreciate you giving us a little bit of time here after you guys worked at it for about an hour and a half on track. Again, congrats on the 3rd place finish, and we'll catch you next week in Richmond.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for broadcasting.
Big thanks to Thomas, as well as all of the drivers in the top 3 tonight for giving us some time post-race. Jason Jacoby, Andrew Faridars, and Thomas J. George for letting us pick the brains a little bit. It's always nice to, get it straight for the horse's mouth, per se, and especially I think at a short track, Justin, when it's just so much chaos and you try to get a little bit of an idea of how these drivers can kind of focus in a little bit and make sense of it all. But with that, 7 races now down on 2019, and we continue this little bit of a stretch of a lot of short tracks in a small period of time. Richmond due up next Monday. That one comes on April the 15th before we head to an off week, and then Talladega at the end of the month of April. So 2 very different racetracks due up, but we move on from Bristol Motor Speedway, a second win for Jacoby on the year.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what we do at Richmond just next week. It's going to be a very different racetrack. Some drivers are already reporting very quick lap times that could potentially surpass the real-world record. It's going to be fun to see who's going to be the one to come up on top after the 175 laps and come away with the checker flag and celebrate inside that grass.
All of our top 3 finishers that we talked to tonight said they like Richmond Raceway, so that means it should be an exciting show, and you're not going to want to miss this one next week. However, that does it for us here tonight from Bristol Motor Speedway. On behalf of our entire team at LSR TV, the folks behind the scenes, the people up at a broadcast booth, night in and night out, and of course, for your team tonight. For our producer, Brett Wheeler, for Justin Prince, I'm Evan Pasoko. I want to thank you for tuning in. Congratulations to Jason Jacoby, a 2-time winner on 2019. We hope to catch you next time out for round number 8 this upcoming Monday, April the 15th from Richmond Raceway. That race and every race 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series powered by SimRacers for Mental Health can be found right here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Thunder Valley.